So welcome to the very first video tutorial that I will be recording with you. And I just want to tell you that these video tutorials will be very useful because they will help us catch up with certain grammar topics, and they will help us one way or another review in depth, profoundly, the grammar topics that sometimes are a little bit difficult to check in class, basically because of the time constraints. 1 hour sometimes is just not enough in order to cover a conversational topic and a grammar topic as well. So I think that this kind of classes or tutorials that are pre-recorded will actually help you pay a little bit more attention to certain grammatical aspects. And just as I promised, the very first topic that I would like to check with you is what is the difference between using the so-called, the famous verb to be, which is in present, and the routines, which are also in present. So let's start with the verb to be. So the first thing I want to call your attention to is the fact that the verb to be is basically used to talk about personal information. So whenever you talk about your name, your last name, your phone number, your email address, your birthday, all of that is related to your personal information, right? So that's when we use the verb to be. Now, another possibility is to talk about the position of objects in reality. Like when you're talking about, I don't know, let's say your mug, and you say that your mug is on the table or on the desk, or maybe whenever we think about even a location, right? In this particular case, maybe this is the context of Google Maps, right? Where is, I don't know, for example, I don't know, where is your favorite restaurant? My favorite restaurant is in La Condesa, right? Or where is your company based? My company is based in Mexico City, right? Or my office is at El Pantalón in Santa Fe. So we're talking about very specific positions. Hmm? And in general, I would say that the verb to be is also used to talk about descriptions. When you talk about physical descriptions, such as, I don't know, my brother is tall or my brother is short, right? My car is red, or something like my class is interesting, or my class is long, or my class is boring. So this would be like the general concepts or the general, sorry, context in which we use the verb to be. Now, just to refresh your memory, uh, whenever we think about the conjugations for the verb to be, we need to consider that there will be different verb forms based on the personal pronouns. Now, what are the personal pronouns? Well, probably you remember, but these are the different personal pronouns, right? I mean, we talk about I, which is the first person of the singular. We have you, which is the second person of the singular. We have he, she, and it, which is the third person of the singular. And then we have the plurals. We, first person of the plural. You, the second person of the plural. Remember that yesterday I mentioned that you is when you're talking about you and another friend, for example. So it would be the equivalent of ustedes. And then we have they, which is the third person. Now, remember that in English, we usually don't make any distinctions between masculine and feminine. So when you're thinking about something like they, that can be for men or that can be for women, right? When we're talking about something like we, that can include the masculine or the feminine. It doesn't make any difference. So thinking about that, that is the classification of the different persons, let's say, and then we just need to pay attention to the affirmative and the negative, how we build that. Well, first of all, the most common way to actually do that is to just use the complete form. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, you are, they are, or to use the abbreviations. And let me tell you something, abbreviations actually reflect the real pronunciation of this verb. So I was telling you yesterday, sometimes we as teachers try to pronounce all the time. I am. You are. And all right, that helps in order to clarify the word, but that's not the real pronunciation. I mean, the real pronunciation is going to be something closer to what I'm about to mention here. For example, in the case of I am, the reality is that it sounds like am. So the abbreviations reproduce the real way we pronounce these words. You are would be something like your. He is would be his. She is she's. It is its. We are we're. You are your. They are their. So that is actually the real pronunciation, and that's why we have this kind of short forms because they reproduce the real way this is pronounced. Now, in the case of the negative, once again, you have two options here. You can just like use it like the full form. I am not, you are not, he is not, she is not, it is not, we are not, you are not, they are not. Or you can try to reproduce the real way we pronounce it. Am not, you aren't, he isn't, we aren't, you aren't, they aren't, right? So it's a choice. What I can tell you is that probably the most common way to use it is actually with the abbreviations. All right. So those are the different ways to make the negatives. Now, what happens in the case of the contexts? Well, first of all, the verb to be, it's very important to remember that the verb to be is not exactly an action. It usually describes a state. So the first context in which we use it is to talk about personal information, as I mentioned, or in a business context, your role, right? So this is part of your identity. So I am a graphic designer of Walmart Connect. This is some of the. This is an example we actually checked yesterday. On the negative, I'm not an account manager. I am an English instructor, right? I am Victor. I am 38 years old. All of these things are part of my identity. Now, the second context could actually be related to the descriptions, right? And in a business context, we would be talking about companies and departments. So in your case, guys, you are part of the ad ops department. I am part of Anglexia. You are not a traditional advertising agency, right? And in my case, I am not a traditional school. Another context we can use, as I mentioned before, is everything that is related to the location. This is to actually talk about where we are or where a certain thing takes place, right? So, thinking about that, in general, and yesterday you mentioned that on Mondays you do home office, right? So, you could say that you are remote today. That means that you are doing home office at home. So if I ask you, hey, where are you right now? And you're at home, you can tell me, I am at home. That is a location, right? Or you could tell me something like this. I am remote today. Or maybe you could tell me, my boss is in the office. They, my coworkers, are in the office. So as you can see, we are using these little things here that we call prepositions. And maybe you're familiar with some prepositions to talk about locations. For example, we have the preposition in, we have the preposition at, and we have the preposition on. Now, little by little, we will make a little bit more of emphasis on that. But the whole point with them is that they usually describe, obviously, where certain things are. Thinking about the preposition in, I'm going to give you an example. In is when we're talking about, for example, broader, a broader area. For example, I can tell you that I live in Mexico, Mexico City. Mexico City is large, right? So the preposition is in because it's a very general thing. It's a broad area, right? Now, my apartment is in, um, particularly the neighborhood is Escandon. So when we're talking about a certain neighborhood, yeah, this is another way, another preposition we can use, because a neighborhood is a broad area, right? We have something else. For example, if you think about the preposition on is a little bit more specific. So the preposition on, for example, can be used to describe a specific streets or even a specific avenues, right? Going back to the same example, I could tell you something like this. My apartment is on, no, let me add something else. My apartment is located on, and the name of my street is Mutualismo, all right? I can tell you something, for example, I'm looking at my dog right now. My dog is on the bed. So literally, I'm talking about on. This jar is on my mouth, right? My dog is on the bed. My computer is on my desk. My apartment is on Mutualismo. Your home, or I don't know, let's say your home is on Reforma. So on is to talk about this specific location. And finally, we have at. So we're talking about a specific address. For example, check this one. I live at Mutualismo 100. It's not only the street, it's actually the street and the number. So when you give something like the street and the number, you can use the preposition at. I live at Mutualismo 100, right? Or you could say something like, I don't know, maybe somebody calls you and they are like, where are you? And then maybe you're thinking about a very specific location. I'm at work. Am at the office. Or I don't know, something like am at el pantalón. Or yeah, you're talking about a very specific location in the map. So you have a certain address in mind. All right. Now, going back to the last context, the verb to be could also be used to talk about contact and availability. So let's say it can be used to talk about your status. So thinking about that, right? You are online on Microsoft Teams until 6 p.m. So you're talking about your availability on the platform, right? So you are online. Maybe you can talk about the way you feel. I feel happy. That is a status. I feel tired. That is a status. Think about this one. What about your WhatsApp status? Sometimes your WhatsApp status probably says something like, I am busy. So this means that you have no time for a meeting, you have no time for anything else. Why? Because your status is busy. I am busy, right? And that means that one way or another, I am not available for a call right now. I don't have time for a call. All right. So the verb to be, as you can see, is used to talk about the states. It's also used to talk about locations, and it's used to talk about descriptions. All right. In the context of your personal identity too. All right. Well, so how is this relevant? Well, basically this is relevant because the verb to be is a state. But then, if you think about what we did yesterday, we were talking about actions, not about states. So when we talk about actions, you have to remember that whenever you talk about something that is part of your routine, you're going to be using automatically the verb. I manage the digital advertising inventory. Now, what is the negative? Some other example. I don't client face during pitch meetings. Now, let me clarify this one. This one is something like I don't meet clients. I don't meet clients face to face during pitch meetings is like a specific presentations where you want to present a certain business idea or a proposal. So this is like a clarification, but you can say I don't meet clients or something more specific. I don't client face. That client face is something like meet, right? Now, another action. You receive automated alerts when a campaign goes live. Or for example, the negative form, they don't check their emails after working hours. You guys do home office on Mondays. You don't go to the office on Mondays. Actions. We coordinate with teams from different time zones. What does that mean? Maybe you work with certain teams in the United States. So if they are in Texas and you are in Mexico City, the time is not the same. Maybe you have a meeting that in Texas starts at 2 p.m. and here in Mexico City starts at 4 p.m. So that difference in the time is what we call the time zone. Look at the negative. We don't attend physical meetings every day. Attend is like go. So we don't go to physical meetings every day. Maybe a lot of your meetings are this kind of reunions, virtual reunions. Another one, simple present, finally, another action. As I mentioned before, you work from home on Mondays, and a negative one, they don't share the same workspace. So, what is happening here, just as a summary? These two contexts that we have here, both of them are obviously in the present. The only difference is precisely that this particular present has different ways to be presented. Present tense, o sea, tiempo presente. You just have to pay attention to what you want to describe. You're going to be using the verb to be to talk about identities, descriptions, locations, and status, just like this column over here. Or you're going to be using actions. You're going to be talking about routines that are part of your day to day, as you can see on the right column. So please give it a watch. Try to read the captions, the subtitles, so that you have a chance to practice a little bit more your listening, so that you have a chance to read and try to correlate the different contexts. And what I'm going to do is to share with you the screenshots to these different topics, and I'm going to share with you also some exercises for you to do during the week. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please just let me know on WhatsApp. Bye-bye.